Mahsa Amini was visiting her aunt in Tehran along with her brother when she was stopped by the morality police and arrested for improper hijab. So basically, not complying with their understanding of hijab rules under the Iranian law. Now, she was taken into a van. 2 hours later, her brother was found out that she was being transferred to the hospital unconscious. 2 days later, she died. Now, what we're hearing is that her family have denied the Iranian authorities' account that she died of natural causes from a prior medical history. They say that there is no such medical history, and that they have heard reports that she was actually beaten at the time of the arrest, and that this may have been the reason for what led to her death in the end.
It's prompted so much anger. We've seen now days of protests. Is it indicative that this is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the morality police?
Well, absolutely. I mean, the fact that there are reports that she may have been ill-treated at the time of her arrest is indicative of broader accounts of other cases we've seen of women who have been beaten or who have been facing ill treatment, of being arrested by the morality police who do this at the time of arrest or during detention. The fact that the morality police are even arresting women for so-called improper use of hijab is in itself a form of violence. They should never be arresting women for the way that they choose to dress in Iran. And people are absolutely furious about this. You know, why on earth is the state involving itself in the way that people express themselves, whether or not the scarf is not tight enough, or it's not covering their hair enough. These kinds of things should not matter as to whether or not people live their lives. And people are being arrested for this. Women are being arrested for this, and women are facing deaths as a result of this. And people are taking to the streets because they're done. They are said it's enough with the way that the state is going after women, and the way that the state in itself is just incredibly violent and repressive. And we're seeing that happening again. We're now seeing people taken to the streets in protest, and the authorities meeting that protest with tear gas and potentially even lethal force. And some people have even died in mostly largely peaceful protests as well.
Yes. You know, the authorities say that the incident was unfortunate. That is how they've termed it. But the problem is there isn't any real sense when you look at the response that there's going to be anything that's going to change.
People are also incredibly tired of the authorities' response. The authorities' immediate response was to claim that she died of natural causes. This was not a proper investigation, so they're losing credibility with the society. If they had said, we don't know what happened, why this woman died, but we will launch an impartial, independent investigation, that would have given people a sense that the authorities were going to try to find out what had happened. But their immediate reaction of denying anything, claiming there was prior medical history, and trying to brush it under the carpet, told people that there was impunity for anything that the authorities do, even when there is a suspicious death in custody. And so now what we're seeing is that the people have had enough. What we want to see is that there is a credible, impartial, independent investigation, both into her death, as well as the allegations of the torture and ill treatment that potentially took place prior to that, as well as seeing reparations to her family, and much more broadly, to see the abolition of the compulsory hijab laws and all laws that discriminate against women. That is the structural reasons for why someone like a 22-year-old woman called Mahsa Amini was arrested in the first place. That should never have even happened.
The likelihood of those reforms coming, though, do not seem hopeful.
The current presidency has been much more hardline in Iran. They've actually given the morality police more powers. In the last few weeks before Mahsa Amini died and before she was arrested, we saw the morality police being sent a new decree saying that women who use social media need to also comply with hijab law in their profile pictures, and that they could even be fired if they're government employees for using personal profile pictures where they're not wearing the hijab. And that the morality police head just in September, so a couple of weeks ago, actually said that they might use surveillance to check whether or not women are actually complying with the hijab law. So what we've actually seen is a real rigidity, a move towards actually enforcing these laws even more so, rather than lifting them. And that goes completely opposite to what the society is looking for. The society itself, according to polling and so on, want less government intervention in their private lives. They want to see the morality police with far less powers. They don't even want it to exist. And they want to see more freedoms for women. So the authorities' incredibly restrictive approach is coming in a dichotomous way with what the society wants. And the society, now we're seeing all of these protests. That's because they're tired of this. They're tired of the repression, of the incredibly difficult environment in which they have to live.
We see the Iran president also being met with protests in New York, calls for him to be immediately arrested and tried at The Hague. It is a tricky time because the US is trying to renegotiate the nuclear deal, and in many ways he is not being held to account in a proper way.
The international community also needs to stand by the Iranian people and call on the president to ensure that he is providing and respecting human rights. That means they need to be calling for a credible, impartial and independent investigation into Mahsa Amini's death and to show strong support for all of human rights in Iran, including the repeal of discriminatory laws against women. There are, of course, important things like the nuclear peace deal. All of these things need to also be discussed. But that does not mean that human rights in Iran must be forsaken for anything else for the international community.
Ratna, appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Thank you.